bit away from the piano because what I'm talking about is it's relevant to the piano, but more about things that a lot of people struggle with. I struggle with, and a lot of parents struggle with, is how do you encourage practicing? How do you encourage your child to practice? And then how do you encourage yourself to practice it well? My mom told me that when I was growing up, she always knew I was home because she worked in the afternoons and I would get home, and she was a nurse and she worked like the 3 to 11 shift. So I'd get home about 2 o'clock. And she said that she always knew I was home because I would immediately go and start practicing the piano. And that was what I did practically every single day. And that's is to practice every day and typically the same time every day. Make it like a habit. You brush your teeth in the morning, you take your coffee, you practice, and maybe it's after the evening news, maybe it's before you have your dinner, or maybe it's right before bedtime, or whatever the case may be. You want to try to make some sort of habit, and that will increase your practicing abilities. And the same thing with kids. You want to make sure that you have some sort of habit. Keep the piano clear of clutter. Too often times I'll see people's pianos and they'll have their papers all over it. I mean, music papers, that's fine. That's where they belong. But the mail, clothes, everything kind of cluttering up. You want the space to be warm and inviting. You might include a candle on it or some incense, whatever the case may be. Make it a pleasant place to be. Have a quiet place to practice, and that's hard. I was lucky enough that we had a room set aside that was like the den, where it was separate from the other rooms in the house, and that was where I would practice the piano. And here I practice in the living room, but you want it to be clear of distractions, and that might mean that to support yourself or your talent or your child's talent, people might need to depart. If it's in the same room where the family room is and the TV is, give them 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever the case may be. Everybody go do something else and allow that person to have that space in order to improve on the craft. Avoid bribes. Parents, I hate to say like any sort of parenting sort of thing. You know your kids, and things that tend to not work and things that tend to work. You want to encourage that intrinsic reward, wanting to do stuff, and bribes of, if you practice, you'll get something. You'll watch TV. That might work for your child. So I'm not saying that's not an appropriate thing, but if you're finding that's not really working, that sometimes they'll just go and sort of half do something, maybe that's not an appropriate thing. Avoid punishments. If you don't practice, you won't get something. You won't watch TV. That's probably a worse, I wouldn't say worse. I hate to say parenting skills, but the same thing goes for yourself. If you're like, well, I'm not going to watch TV until I practice. And then what happens? You do everything else but practice, and then you watch TV and then you feel guilty. Or you say, I won't go out or do something if, and we do this myself, and you end up doing it, or you do everything else because you want to punish yourself. Another thing is to do smaller increments in time. If you find that 15 minutes is too long, you might, and this is especially true for younger students, start 5 minutes. Just do 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or just play it one time, one scale. Another way of encouraging is to watch videos of people playing songs that you like. There's a lot of YouTube videos of great pianists that play songs, popular songs, and that could encourage you to say, but try not to say, well, if you practice, you would be like this, but let's just watch what that person's doing. Consider what you or your child's personalities and other things, such as an audience. When I was younger, I did not like an audience. I didn't like anybody sitting in the same room as I did. I knew people could hear me, but people sitting near me and watching me freaked me out, and I didn't like that. So if you find that they're sort of uncomfortable with you around, it might be a good idea to give them some space and not have the audience. Or you might find that they do want the audience, and that's something that you might need to sit around and sit with them for 5-10 minutes and provide them with that space to share their talents with you. Do another thing that a lot of people do, which I did not like, was the joking. My dad did this a lot, and I really didn't like it. Or as I was practicing, and this is just practicing all together, he would start singing a song that I was singing, especially a classical piece, and I'm like, stop. Don't do that. So it wasn't joking. It was him trying, I think he was trying to encourage, but it made me nervous because I'm like, I can't keep up with you, and I know I'm not at that level, and it made me feel very insecure. Or, oh, I can play that, or something like that. Or my mom told me one time, you used to play that very well. And so the joking thing can be very detrimental to people. The other thing is reduce the number of practice days. If 7 days would be ideal, I would love to do 7. I can't do 7 days. A lot of people can't. Maybe it's 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. I would say the least you should do is 3. And ask for your child's input. When you're talking about rewards, when you're talking about having time, whatever it is, ask them, what is it that they would like? Do you want somebody to sit in with you, or do you want them to be somewhere else? Understand that every musician has their good days and bad days. If it's a bad day, stop and try another day. And there's a lot of things. You're not feeling well. There's other things that are going on. You're too distracted. There are times where I have all of the gumption to go and play, and I sit down and I'm just stuck. Or I play a little bit and I'm like, I'm just not feeling this today. And that is very common. And with children, be calm. And oftentimes children that display, especially in music, when they display like immense displeasure or frustration, it's because they're a little, they are disappointed that they're not doing as well as they would hope to be. Because if they're a musician and they like that, everyone has some ideas. Unfortunately, we all think we have the idea that we're going to sit in front of a piano, and 2 weeks later we're going to be playing like Mozart. And when you might have some temper tantrums and things of that nature, it might be just because they're frustrated. And take a step back, maybe go back and say, well, if you are going forward and you're going on to a harder scale, let's go back and look at that one scale. You did that scale so well. Let's just go back and do that again. You know your children. I'm only giving advice from just myself as personally as a young person taking piano lessons, and as a teacher who has taught students piano lessons as well, and as a professional pianist as well. So those are some tips, and I think that applies to both children and adults. If you're not feeling it, walk away. Take another day. Set some timers on your phone. Understand that some days are not going to be good days, and that's perfectly fine. So those were some tips on how to encourage practicing for both adults and children.